Okay.
Good afternoon. I started the recording.
All right. All right. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Hmm. Okay, please confirm once you can see my screen, what I'm sharing. You can do that by either raising up your hand or just unmute and tell me you can see my screen. Okay, thank you, Jesse. I saw your message. So let's begin. Okay, so when you hear, I would expect that everyone should probably get a set of writing materials. Yeah, because today's today's class is like very, very informative. So when you hear laws of UX, what comes to your mind? So I'm throwing this out there. Is there any one of us that has heard of the term laws of UX before? Is there any one of us who has heard of the term laws of UX before?
No.
Okay, that's Ola. Who else? Okay, how about Samuel, Tunde, and Jesse?
No, I've not heard of that.
I've not heard of the laws of UX before.
Okay, okay. So basically, they're like a collection of principles. So principles that govern or guide user experience, UI UX design, user experience, user interface design. So and these laws, they were formulated from psychological concepts. Yeah, I think most of them were formulated by psychologists. So one thing we should note in user experience design is actually how it relates to psychology. I think in some of these companies, when they're looking for just UX designers, that is user experience designers, they tend to look for people with maybe a degree in psychology. Yeah, because psychology deals with understanding people, right? Understanding people and user experience design is all about understanding people. Yeah. So let's just move forward. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, they are like a collection of principles that govern user experience design and user interface design. And they are drawn from psychological concepts, psychological theories, basically from psychology. So these laws are like a set of instructions that we as designers follow. There are a set of instructions that you as a designer will follow. If you, if you want to design products that are actually usable, that will be used by humans, you have to abide by these certain laws. Now, these laws they're not strict laws that box you a within a thought constraint or design constraint or creativity constraint. No, they're just like guidelines basically. Yeah, they are guidelines that over time they will become part of you, because first and foremost you're also a human being, so you'll be able to relate to these laws. They'll become part of you, and you'll be able to apply these laws without even thinking. Yeah, without thinking. Nobody crams all these in their heads. They just understand them, have the idea of it, and it's able to direct their design thinking. Okay, so they help designers understand how users view and interact with digital products. Yes. So in the long run, following these rules actually makes you make better design choices. Yeah. So these UX laws, there's this particular site which is where I'm sharing. It's called lawsofux.com, where it outlines all the laws of UX. think about 40 something of them. Yeah, if I'm right. Is that or something? Yeah, I think it's not 40. Where it outlines all of them, the most important ones. So I would also drop this link in the chat at some point. So, but aside from this, the laws of UX are actually grouped into four. Yeah, or would I say categorized into four. So we have laws of UX and they are categorized into four. Categorized into four. So in the absence of my slide, what I would do is I would be typing out these spellings just in case maybe you might have some difficulty like getting their spellings. Excuse me. So the first one, the first category is heuristics. Let me write that out. Heuristics. Okay, someone. Okay, so the first category is heuristics. Can everyone see it in the chat?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So what exactly are heuristics? So they're like, we'll call them mental shortcuts, yeah, that make decision making simple, yeah. So they are mental shortcuts that actually simplify decision making and also they make problem solving easier. So okay, before I define it, let me just list out the others. So we have heuristics, we have Gestalt principles, the Gestalt principles. Okay, Gestalt principles. Then we have cognitive bias. That's 3. And then the last one, which are design principles. Okay. So throughout today's class, we're going to be looking at these 4 things. We'll look at heuristics, Gestalt principles, cognitive bias, and design principles. So all these 4 are the categories of the laws of UX. The categories of the laws of UX, and all different laws of UX fall under these categories. So let me just, so before we delve into them, I'll just outline some notable laws of UX. So these are the most popular, these are the most significant, these are the ones that have been stressed upon like day by day, like everywhere. They're like the most popular and the most widely applied. So the first one I would mention would be Jacob's law. Jacob's law. I hope we're writing it down. Jacob's law. At every point, I would want to recap. Okay, I think let's start from now. So from what I mentioned, can someone please just give me like the meaning or what you understand by the laws of UX, like at this point?
Yeah, you said there are a collection of best practices that designers can consider, like laws that designers follows based on psychology.
Okay, yeah, good. Perfect. Like this your definition basically summarizes everything. Thank you, Ola. Anyone else? Does anyone have a different meaning or yeah? Anyone else or want to say something?
I just feel, based on what I understood, there are guidelines that help designers in carrying out their designs, and you spoke on psychology being the basis from which most of these laws were drawn. So that's what I understand so far.
Great, great, great. Okay, yeah. So is there anyone else who wants to try?
Okay, let me try. Yeah. You said
Okay.
laws of UX design, they are set of instructions that designers follow in carrying out UX design, and they come from psychology, because psychology study uh, human being, and and in the same way UX deal with uh, human experience, user experience rather.
Yes. Great. Thank you. So I heard a new set of instructions, guidelines, and then Ola said um principles. Yeah. Guidelines, principles, instructions. All these can be used to describe the laws of UX. So let's move on to, thank you everyone. Let's move on to the four categories. I mentioned that there are four categories in which all these laws are grouped or categorized into. We have the heuristics, the Gestalt principles, cognitive bias, and design principles. Okay.
Ma, I want to ask, those laws, the one that you just mentioned, are they different from
Mhm.
the first one that you mentioned? Those Jacob laws and everything.
No,
They are
no,
different,
no.
right?
No, they're not different. This Jacob's law is actually within one of these four categories. But it's just that it's the most popular. Yeah, it's the most popular. It's one of the most popular, so it's widely used. Yeah. Okay, so let's just continue. Okay, so I mentioned Jacob's law. So we have Jacob's law. So let me take you back to the let me take you back to the okay. So now, so here, out of all of these, I was going to mention this aesthetic usability effect, chunking, cognitive bias, cognitive load, Doherty threshold, Fitts law, flow, Hicks law. So what this site does is that it basically took all the laws and pieces them. It didn't categorize them into any groups. It didn't categorize them into any groups. But categorizing them into groups would actually help you to recall them and understanding them. So these are like, aside from the cognitive bias and some of these here, we have some that are like floating laws. Okay, so let me just continue with my teaching. Okay, before moving on to the notable laws, like just to prevent confusion, let's discuss the heuristics, the Gestalt principles, the cognitive bias, the design principles. Okay, so when you hear Gestalt principles, I don't know if anyone has heard of the term before, or cognitive bias or design principles. They actually, all these categories, they explain like different aspects. They cover different aspects of let's say user experience design. So I mentioned earlier that heuristics are like mental shortcuts, right? Mental shortcuts that simplify decision making, mental shortcuts that help with problem solving. So let me tell you how. Okay. So okay, so like recapping based on what I've mentioned, can someone please give me like an understanding of the heuristics? Yeah.
Okay, what you said about heuristics as one of
Yes.
the four
Heuristics.
categories of the laws of design is that they serve as
Yes.
mental shortcuts to make decision making and problem solving easier for designers.
Okay.
And that's basically what I got from heuristics.
All right. All right. Okay. Thank you for that. Then we have the Gestalt principles. So basically, what Gestalt principles do is that these principles, they actually tell us as designers how users, people using our products, how they see the elements of our design, like how they perceive those elements of our design, and that they perceive elements of our design as one instead of individual parts. So like Gestalt principle basically says that, okay, that when users come upon a design, when they come upon a product, they don't see it the way we see it. They don't see the way we see it as elements. They see it as, like organized wholes instead of parts like that we do. So this principle, we came out in the early 1900s. Yeah. It was popularized by some German psychologists, and it was applied in design, not digital design at that time, because digital design wasn't in existence, but for like industrial design. And now it has become very essential in user experience design and user interface design. So there are a few Gestalt principles. We have about 9 of them, and I'll just be listing them out. Okay. But before I move forward, can someone please tell me what Gestalt principles are? Yes, someone else other than Jesse.
He said
What
he
just
said just that people
Mhm.
how our users see our element as a design or as a whole, like in an organized manner, like the way you
Yes,
said it.
yes. So they see it as one instead of like, okay, like now when you when you're designing and you look at your design, what you see are the elements. You see the button, you see the images, you basically see the different parts. But imagine if you were not a designer, you were just using an app. Most people don't pay attention to the elements. Nothing stands out to them. They just come, they see a whole website. If one thing is not working in that website, it's everything that is not working in that website. So that's basically what it means, that they don't see design elements, they don't take apart things, they just see a design as one design, a whole design. Yeah. So the key Gestalt principles, the first one is proximity. 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 So what this says is that when elements are close together, people tend to perceive them as a group. So in a design, if you have elements that maybe you're making a design and you have elements that are brought close together, people will perceive it as a group. So why this principle is essential is maybe when you're designing like lists, or like in your design, when you're trying to organize information, yeah, structure your design, you organize it in such a way that similar information that relates to one another, you put them together, because people would see things that are placed together or placed close to one another as a group. So that's proximity. Now, if they are close to one another, people would see it as a group. So when you're designing, make sure that related design elements are close together, and unrelated design elements have space between them, or else people would tend to even see those unrelated design elements as a group. And this can lead to cognitive load, which is when the brain takes in too much information and gets confused or gets stressed. Like, I'm sure you've come upon sites that had like too much information, sites that were too, let me show you an example. We're going to use this as our practice today. So I'm sharing another tab. So can everyone see this?
Yeah, I can see
Yes.
it.
Yeah, so surprisingly,
Yes, I can see
Yes,
it.
this is the website of Yale School of Arts. Like, this is their official website. And why it is like this is because they allowed different students, like, who are not designers, just basically artists. Some are graphic designers, some are UI UX designers, but not just them. They allowed all of them to design this website. So it's kind of like their project. You must add something to the website, so it ends up looking like this. And when you come upon something like this, you realize that there's too much information. Like, look at this place. See how they grouped everything here together. This defies that Gestalt principle of proximity. This is supposed to be the navigation. I don't know what this is, but everything is just together and so disorganized and confusing. I don't know where to look at once I come here. So let me go back to this. Okay. So do we all understand what I mean by proximity?
Yeah.
Good. So
yes.
that's proximity. Another one is similarity. Similarity. That is that if objects share similar visual characteristics like color, visual characteristics like shape, visual characteristics like similar sizes, people would think that they are in the same group. Now, this is similarity. Okay, now let's to prevent confusion, let's look at proximity. Proximity says that if they are close together, people would see them as a group. While similarity says that if they have similar visual characteristics like color or shape or size, people would think they belong to the same group. So are we getting it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, why this is all under Gestalt principles. Gestalt principle that states that people see designs as a whole. People see wholes of things, not pieces, not elements. So if things are close together, they would see them as a group. If things have similar visual characteristics, they would see them as a group, which is similarity. Yeah, which is similarity. So let me see if there's an example that I can show you. There's an example I can show you. Okay, so now look at this. When you see these two, even without seeing this community bulletin board header or heading, even without seeing this, you just know that these two are related. That you see them as a group, even without, because why? They have a similar structure, a similar shape, and they have a similar colors. They have similar colors. Yeah. So, okay, so any questions so far?
No, ma.
Okay. Then the third one is continuity. Continuity. This
Sorry, ma, I
says
have a
that,
question.
okay, please ask.
Okay, thank you. I'm understanding the Gestalt principle, but my issue is that heuristics that we talked before. When you mentioned it was mental shortcuts that aid in problem solving. Please, can you mention an example?
Okay, hold on, come. So there's something we call usability heuristics. Let me show you something. I was going to go back to this. I don't know if, but we'll come back to this. Is that okay? Like, we're not actually done with
Yes,
this.
ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah. So okay. So I was in the third one, right? The third Gestalt principle, continuity. So what continuity says is that The human eye follows lines and curves. Okay, let me show you an example. There should be something here. When you see lines, you see curves, you tend to follow it like it were a path. Like your eyes tend to follow that line like it were a path. Let me see. Okay. All right, I think I would use this. Yes. Okay. So can we all see this? Yeah, can we all see
Yes.
this?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
ma'am.
Okay, so
Yes.
we spoke about proximity and similarity. Now, continuity or continuation. So when like you see lines, your eyes tend to follow it as if it were a path, as if it were like you were following a path. And then if there's an intersection between any two paths, people tend to see them as one. Like, okay, this is an example. You look at this X. If you actually think very well, okay, wait, can someone just tell me, like, okay, when you came upon this and you saw this X, what did like, how did you see it? Yeah.
I saw it as an X sign.
Okay, Jack, you saw the X as a whole, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because they were intersecting, right?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Now imagine if
yes.
these two lines didn't intersect. Your eyes would actually follow the lines without joining them together. But depending on how close they are, that's proximity now. Depending on how close they are, you might actually think that they are a group, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So then, okay. Then another one, look at this. This is good figure. This is good figure. This is basically what the Gestalt principles are all about. That when you group things together, this is different from proximity. That when you group things together, they become simplified. They become one. They become simplified, not just a group like with proximity, but they become one. Like they become a whole. They become a whole. Okay. Then look at symmetry. So if you're looking at, we're also going to touch on symmetry and asymmetry under the design principles. So if you're looking at symmetry, you'd realize that okay, we have three types of symmetry. We have the radial symmetry, we have asymmetry, and then we have like symmetry. So what does it mean? So this, I think those are called balance. Yeah, balance. So if it's symmetrical, if it's asymmetrical, and if it's radially symmetrical. So when you're looking at symmetry generally or balance, we tend to start to look at them from like a midpoint. A midpoint. That's what this talks about. from a midpoint. So let's say, so this is essential when you're like planning your layout and looking and trying to make sure that your design is balanced. If you're meaning that the left side and the right side, they have like equal weight. That's what does weight means, that what is on one side doesn't look to be more than what is on the other side. So symmetry is when they equally balance out one another. When they equally balance out one another, that's symmetry. And people tend to look at them, view all this from the center. Okay, so I think we've touched on, the only one we haven't touched on is closure. Yeah. So look at this. Look at this. This white shape here is actually white space. It's actually white space. It's a space, it's not a shape, white space. Visual connection or continuity between sets of elements which do not actually touch each other in a composition. So because of this white space, or this, yeah, because of this white space, over this, you tend to think that all these are together and look at them, even though like they are separate from one another. Also contributing to the fact that they are actually close to one another and you view them as a group. So basically, the Gestalt principle just talks about how people view things as one. And one lesson that we can learn from Gestalt principles is this: related information should stay close together, should intersect, should have a common center. Yeah, related information. So if you're designing maybe if you're designing a product and you're having to deal with text, there's a certain way you would have to lay out your text to make sure that what is supposed to be together, what's supposed to be considered as one or considered as a group, should be like, should have or should obey the Gestalt principles. So so let's go to, first let's talk about how we can actually apply these principles. I mentioned if you want to apply proximity, you group related items together, like your nav bar, for instance. The links in your navigation bar, which is the menu at the top of your let me show you. Okay. So this is a navigation bar. This articles, book, cards, info store. So this is the navigation. You can call it a navigation bar or a navigation menu. So everything here is grouped together, and this follows the Gestalt principles, the principle of proximity. So you see it as a, oh, this is the navigation. Not unlike this one. I'm coming. Not unlike this one, where there is, I don't know what this is. This is a sort of navigation bar. Then there's also something else here in the name of quick links. Yeah, so this actually doesn't follow the Gestalt principles at all. If it were to follow it, then the navigation would be somewhere at the top where everyone can see it and would be together, and these quick links would have either found a way to be within the navigation here or in the footer, which is the bottom of the page. The footer is the bottom of the page here, where what you usually see in websites. Okay, so so let's continue. Then if you want to employ or employ the principle of similarity, you do this by, can someone please answer? If you remember what the principle of similarity is, the Gestalt principle of similarity, how do you think you would employ it in your design? Is someone going to answer?
Okay. To apply Gestalt's principle of similarity in your design, you tend to make the objects either similar in shape or similar in size, or they have similar colors.
Okay, perfect. Yes. So that's it. That's it. That's why you see that in designs there's like, well, I'll call it consistency. Yeah. Like for buttons take the same shape all throughout the design. If they have corner radius, if they are rounded, if they are not rounded, whatever color it is, all this helps. It helps to indicate their functionality. People recognize them as, oh, this is also part of this group. This button is part of this group, and this group does this. So it would prevent confusion and reduce the cognitive load on the user. Yeah. Okay. So if you can leverage these principles or find how to integrate these principles, you'll be able to actually create similar experiences. So let's move on. Let's move on to the design principles. Design principles. Okay. So I'm sure we must have heard of design principles. There are some of us who have actually like maybe practiced your graphic design at one point. So the principles are actually the same. Principles for design are basically general, they are universal. Yeah, these design principles are universal, and they are used in graphic design, they're also used in UI UX design. So these principles are like guidelines. Yeah, another set of guidelines also under the laws of UX. They inform but these principles are basically focused on aesthetics. Whereas the Gestalt principle is focused on psychology, basically. These key principles of design are focused on the aesthetics. They are focused on the designs themselves, the aesthetics. Not not really looking at how people would see them, but looking at the design's impact on people. Yeah, not how people would see the designs, but how the designs would impact people and what message the designs would give to people. So the first one we'd look at would be emphasis. 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 So emphasis. So if you want something to be a primary focus or to be a main element, or you want something here to draw the user's attention, you make it contrast. You can use, what do I mean by making it contrast? That is, use something different from the norm. Let's say your design, you've been using shades of blue, blue and white, monochromatic colors, just blue, shades of blue and white. And then for maybe your error message, you want to tell your user that, oh, you've made an error, would you like to undo, or this isn't possible. You would want to use something that is different so that it can quickly draw the user's attention. You can do this by using different colors. You can do this by using a different size from like all the other elements. Maybe the particular button that you could use for this could be very big, and or you can even put that notification in a different position that is like that kind of, let's say, interrupts the layout. So when people see, they'll be like, oh, they'll easily notice it because it's like outside the norm. It's different. That's emphasis. So you're laying emphasis on different elements in a design to draw the user's attention. Emphasis, there's another one that is similar to emphasis, which is contrast, but they shouldn't be confused with one another. We'll still get to contrast. So another one is balance. Okay. think someone is trying to join. Okay. All right, so another one is balance. This was what I spoke about, like when I was talking about symmetry. So like so what balance talks about, to refers to is like visual weight. Visual weight. You look at symmetrical, you look at asymmetrical, you look at radially symmetrical. So like it refers to the distribution of visual weight in a design. Let me show you examples. I think you need to see something for this. Let me show you examples. Okay, this should be something. All right. So this is primarily a graphic design principle. Like it's most applied in graphic design, but now we also use it in UI UX design. In fact, most of the design principles I mentioned earlier, they are universal, and if they apply to anyone, they are like applied to all, yeah, all forms of design. So I'm trying to get something to show you that describes balance in design. Okay, I think I've seen something. Okay, so I'll share my screen, this background. Okay. All right. So this talks about the different types of weight. So just take each square as one, each square. Okay. So now look at this one. This is symmetry. When I say weight, I mean that what is here on the right side, that look at this rectangle, and these two squares or rectangles on the right side, what is on the left side, this rectangle, and these two rectangles on the right side, they sort of balance out each other. That is, this one, imagine a scale. This one doesn't seem to outweigh this one, doesn't seem like it's too big or it's too much. But then you see designs that are planned like this. You see layouts that are planned like this. Whereas you have maybe an image on this side and then they balance it out with text on the other side. So this is symmetry. This is symmetry. Then this is radial symmetry. It's like the design elements are projected from a center. It's like design elements are projected from a center. Yeah, from a center. That's radial symmetry. That's radial symmetry. This image doesn't talk about asymmetry, but I will show you something about asymmetry, whereby what is on the left side is not exactly equal to what is on the right side, but because of the placement, they kind of balance out each other. I'm sure you must have seen designs like this. There's okay, whereby it's not really like they are balancing out each other, or everything on one side is equal to all the things on the other side. But yet the space, even if it's uneven, it's still making sense and everything works together. That's how asymmetry works. Okay. Yes, I've seen something. So this is a perfect example of asymmetry here. Here. So what is here is not equal to here, but it could be actually opposite to what's there. And then this sense of being opposite sort of balances out each other. Look at this, what I mentioned earlier, symmetry, whereby what is on the left equals what is on the right. This is symmetrical. Then this is symmetrical. It doesn't exactly balance out. Instead, it's kind of like they oppose one another or each other. They oppose each other. But you see a form of harmony between them. I don't know if you guys are getting me. Does anyone have any questions so far? Any
I don't have any
questions?
question. I don't have any question, but I'm following you.
Okay, any questions? Anyone else? All right, I'll take that. Yeah, I heard someone's voice.
I
Yeah,
just said no
no
question.
question, no question.
Okay, I'll take that as a no. All right. So let's move on to the next one, which is contrast. So with contrast, you're using differences, differences to highlight key elements here, not just bringing out one from the mix or bringing out one from the others. We are using like differences to make specific parts of your design, like to make specific parts of your design pop. Yeah, to make the specific parts of your design pop. So like, it's not just to draw the user's attention. Sometimes it's also to create a sense of a sense of a sense of unity. Yeah. So imagine, or to make something even clearer. So we apply contrast most especially in colors. So like you could have two colors, and you want that if one color sits on the other color, you'll still be able to see each of the colors, and they won't one won't be obscured. Or so like when two colors have good contrast, basically opposing colors on the color wheel. Let me get something for that. You'd see that. All right, so okay, let me get something for that. Mm, okay, so I hope everyone is like following. Yeah, I hope everyone is following.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Balloon. It's okay.
All right, I need to share
200.
my screen again. Um,
Okay, 500 and I feared.
whose mic is unmuted? Okay, let me share my screen. All right. Okay. So can everyone see this image? I hope it's clear on your own end too. I think there's Can we all see this? Let me see. Let me see what you can see.
Yes.
Okay. So this basically
Yes, I can.
describes all the different forms of contrast. So you can have contrast in shape. When you make sure that two things or two elements actually have different shapes so that when they are beside one another, they can still be visible and one isn't, will I say, obscured or overshadowed. Yeah, let me use overshadow is the word. And one is not overshadowed by the other. So look at these two. They are contrasting and equally being projected. Then contrast in color. You use it when you want specific things to be visible and not obscured or overshadowed, just like with shape. Look at. Then contrast in scale. So basically, contrast is used to create differences between elements. And by creating differences between elements, you're drawing the attention to each and every element, not just one of those elements. Contrast in layout. These two are so obvious because they are different from one another. If they were the same, you might actually think they are one. You just look at them as a whole. But whoever did this wanted to draw your attention to the two groups as separate entities, and then contrast was added. Okay, so do we understand this?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes,
I
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Then the next one is repetition. 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 Repetition creates cohesion, or let's say unity. Repetition creates unity, just like the term. You are repeating elements, like maybe in your website, in your design, you see certain elements, maybe certain patterns that they keep on reusing all throughout that site. It gives a sense of unity, and it helps to like reinforce the brand identity. You begin to associate that repeated element with the brand, with that website, with that product. You begin to associate because it is being repeated. So and doing this actually makes great sense of familiarity, because if the user can associate something with your brand, then so whenever they see something similar, they'll be able to remember and be like, oh, this website has something like this. Oh, or they just see the ship and they know, okay, oh, it's definitely this website. That's what repetition is used for. Then another one is proportion. 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 Proportion, contrast, and emphasis should not be confused with one another. So proportion just deals with size. Proportion just deals with size. Basically, you want to convey that something is important by making it bigger. That's proportion. It's used a lot in graphic design. You want to know that you want people to think that, oh, this thing is bigger, this thing is important, and then you make it bigger. Like when you're designing maybe a hero section. Let me look for something like that. Yes. Mm. Let me look for a hero section. Okay, I think this is taking time. But what I mean is that for okay. All right. Okay. I think I've gotten just the right thing. Is the reason why in hero like in hero text, excuse me, is the reason why in hero text. So what I'm sharing now is the hero section of the website. So like once you log into, or once you click on a link, or you log into a web app or website, the first page that you see on the whole, like the home page, there will be a sort of like a sort of like the design that is above, like that you can see immediately. That is called the hero. That is called the hero section. So usually on most heroes, you would have very big text on the right side, on the left side, or in the middle. Now this is used to draw attention, because on this hero, the most important thing is what they made bigger, and that is what they want you to see. Here is your trusted partner on your journey to success. This is the message that they are trying to pass across, and it's the message that they want anyone who first gets on their site or gets on their website to see. So that is why the size is increased. Yeah, that's why the size is increased. And that is our proportion. So you're using size to actually convey importance. So maybe people perceive, oh, this is more important. This is what I should read first. Okay, so another one is movement. 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 There's a way you can arrange elements within a design that you can direct the user's like visual, like the user's visual movement or eye movement. So one thing we should notice is that when people read, we read from the left to the right. We read from the left to the right in an F pattern. That's the most common pattern that people use when reading. Like they draw, like you read in an F pattern. First, you read from left to right, then you come back to right to left, you move down, and then you read again from left to right. That's how it goes. Then you move down. So because of this, people have learned to actually guide, designers have learned to actually guide the users like eyes on their sites. So because we now know that people read from left to right, that once you come upon a site, the first place your eyes goes to is the left side. There's a way you can arrange elements in a way that you direct the user's eyes to what you actually want them to see. That is what is called movement. So it's achieved by arranging elements or using lines and shapes that can either draw attention or direct attention to different parts of your site. Then the next one is white space, or also called negative space. So white space is like the area around or in between a design. Okay. So it's like the area around or in between your design. Okay, another, so it can also be called negative space, and then you use it to create, you can use it to create clarity. You can also use it to create organization. So basically what you want the user to focus on, you create white space around it. So that white space to also kind of like direct the user's attention to the specific elements that you want. So does anyone have any questions? Because I'm going to ask now. I would ask questions now. So let's just do a quick recap of like the different principles, because I know we've gone through a lot. So does anyone have any questions? Taking that as a no. Okay, then I'll ask. So who wants to okay, Jesse, no. Okay, so who wants to okay, so let's do it like this. Each one of you would give me one design principle that we've mentioned. Just name it. Yeah, so who wants to go first? Who is going first? Ayomide. Okay, Daniel raised up his hand. Okay,
Yeah.
Daniel, unmute mic.
Hello, everyone. Can we all hear
Yeah,
me?
hi Daniel.
Oh, good evening. So I'll talk
Good
about
evening.
hierarchy.
Okay.
Yes, and hierarchy simply is the ability to.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I think someone called him.
Oh, okay. So he mentioned hierarchy. Who wants to go next?
I think I'll speak on contrast.
Okay. So what do you understand by contrast?
So under design principles, contrast is used to highlight the differences between specific elements, like making specific parts of your design pop, just like you said. And there are about 4 different types of contrasts according to the description you gave us. We have contrast in shape, where if you want something to be more visible than others, you can use a different shape out of the normal for it. We have contrast in color, we have contrast in scale, we have contrast in layout, and they're all just used to bring difference and highlights to certain elements apart from the rest.
All right. Yeah, that's great. So Daniel, you can unmute now and continue. Okay, I'm really after Daniel. I hope your network is back now.
Yeah, I think so. It's okay. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. Yes.
So as I was saying, hierarchy creates order of importance to certain elements. Like the ones you place as more important, you increase them in size, or you scale them, or use color. It just creates an order of importance of elements, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Then Ayomide.
Okay. All right. I'll be talking on white space. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Like you said, white space is also negative space, which deals with the space that are occupied by your text and images. Refers to like the empty spaces around them. And you said the purpose for them for white space is for clarity, for focus, and for readability.
Good, very good. Thank you. Jeremiah.
Okay, but I'll be talking on the Gestalt principle of similarity.
Okay, similarity. Okay.
You said
Yeah, please
we
go
have
ahead.
five Gestalt principles. That is Gestalt principle of similarity, continuity, closure, and connectedness. But for similarity, there are those ones in those elements that are usually in the same color.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. But not just in color though. Not just in color. Not just in
Okay,
color,
ma.
also in shape. Yeah, and also in size. Yeah. Okay, so thank you. I think who else? I think this is everybody. Okay, only Tunde hasn't spoken. Yeah,
Yes,
Tunde hasn't.
no, yes.
Okay.
Now I will go for. Are you hearing me?
Not very clearly.
Repetition. I'm going for
Oh,
repetition.
repetition. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's when you decide to repeat a part of your design,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps to create cohesion or unity.
Good. Yeah. 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 Thank you. Well done. Then Jeremiah, raising up your hand again. Please go ahead.
Um, is Jeremiah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so the the principle of similarity, I mean, those elements are usually of the same function, like just putting them in the same color so that it's easier that way, so that you know that these ones are of maybe similar function. That is why they
Yes.
are
Yes.
that same color.
Yes. 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 Yeah, that's like it. Yes, exactly. So you so like um you're showing, or rather you want to show similarity between two objects or two elements within a design by either giving them, similar character, like the same characteristics, probably the same color, the same shape, the same size. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so let's continue. Wait, Ola, have you spoken? I think were you the first person to speak, I think. Oh. How about Samuel? I don't think I've heard from Samuel.
Yes, I haven't spoken today. Good
Oh,
evening.
good evening.
So, I'll be talking about. I'll be talking about con. Sorry, talking about balance. Where you told us that it's one of the design principles and it's necessary because it helps to create a sense of neutrality, a sense of um organization. It makes the design looks organized, and you mentioned that we have um symmetrical and symmetrical balance. So
Mm-hmm.
I picked the fact that balance can also enhance repetition because since repetition helps create unity and cohesion,
Mm-hmm.
I be- it's kind of related to balance because once there's the element of repetition and there's element of balance. Once there's element of repetition, there has to be an element of balance. So I think balance helps in making petition also work, and I just believe they work hand in hand, and balance is very necessary also for the design. So it won't everything will be scattered, just like you gave in the example of that website, the Yale of Arts, where um um everything isn't that orderly, I guess. So I think balance helps to just maintain order in the design as well.
Mm, okay. Yes. So okay. Yeah, yeah, I would say order is the word. Yeah, but like it just makes everything look, look like there is harmony here within the design. Yeah. Thank
Yes.
you, Samuel. So like looking at this site now. So there's something I want us to do. I'm going to send the link to the chat now. So what I want you to do is open it on whatever device that you are using, if it's your phone or your laptops or your PCs, and just try and pinpoint one thing that is wrong. Just pinpoint one thing that is wrong. And once you figure it out, just raise up your hand or mute, and then you can just say that. Yeah. So I've sent it to the chat. So just visit the site. So we have now it's 7:32. we have 5 minutes to like just go through the site. You can navigate anywhere. There's actually a lot of things wrong with that site. So just go through it in 5 minutes so that by 7:37, yeah, you should be able to unmute and yes. Okay, so it's already 7:37. So who is ready to go? Okay, so who's ready to go? One thing that you notice. All right, Daniel, can see your hand. Okay, unmute and
Okay, so I think I discovered three things that was wrong with the whole design of this website. Number one would be hierarchy. I think the website got placements of, which one is more important than the other. I got that wrong in many places. I couldn't visually tell which one was the more important elements to look at than the other. So I think that was one. Number two, it got contrast wrong in some places. So there were so many colors. A lot was just happening, and visually it was not appealing. So many colors were not complementing each other. So that was two. And then I think alignment. So many elements were not aligned properly. They looked really disorderly. So those are the three things I noticed.
yeah. Okay. Well done. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's encouraging. I think okay, Jesse raised his hand next.
Yeah, I did. From
Okay.
the web page, the things that I noticed that were wrong were, firstly, according to Gestalt's principle of similarity, which light has been shed on. A lot of things in that website seem very similar in color and in shape. Now that brings me straight to repetition. While I was reading through the website, I felt some of the things that looked alike were probably a repetition of something I've read before. So apart from the fact that it's an assignment to do, I could have skipped past some of the information that might have been useful because they all seemed very similar. And then balance and negative space. There is some presence of negative space in the design on the right hand side. There's a lot of empty space there, but it's not really fulfilling the purpose of pointing me to what I should be focused on because the design is not properly done. So nothing, not drawing attention to anything in particular.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. Then Ayomide.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
You can unmute. Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Hello? Okay. So
Yes, I can hear you.
okay. So on concerning the website, so there are like some few things I also saw. The proximity of like the elements, especially the headings and the paragraph, is difficult to, how I say it, associate them differently, and they have unrelated elements that are close together too. Then also, I would say contrast too. They use bright yellow and bright red and bright green. Also in like relation to the background. So everything you can hardly more like they tell them apart. Then the balance, there is too much weight of the colors, and there's like insufficient white space. So everything is too clustered together, and the use of symmetry is also lacking. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ayomide. Then Tunde, you're next.
Okay, thank you. Like others said, you have observed too. There are many things that are wrong with the website. Even the way the website was organized, it was not very well organized. And you cannot talk about movement. You don't know where to go first, what to read first. Everything disorganized. And at the same time, the issue of contrast. That is, they call different colors at the same time. There's no contrast between those colors. Some majority of the color they are bright, and you can't distinguish between one and the other. And at the same time, issue of emphasis. You can't, you can't. I don't see how they attract uh, users to their website because it looks confusing. Everything is
Yeah.
confused. You can't say which one and which one is the most important information that we need to get as a user. That are some of the things I observed.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. This, yeah, thank like we're all following. Like, yeah, thank you so much. Well done, everyone. So let's just quickly round up on the design principles. Yeah, so there's still a few that I haven't mentioned, and we'll just touch it and that'll be it. So I think one of you mentioned hierarchy. Yeah, one of you may already mentioned hierarchy. So like you're establishing importance. So the most important things are the ones that you want the user to see first, or to come upon first. You make that one more visible. You create more contrast around it. You could increase the size. You could add more white space, but like you want what is important to be noticed first. Yeah, that's hierarchy. So like you're arranging your contents in order of importance from the most important to the least important, so that this also adds movement. So yeah, this movement can also come into play here, so that when your user like comes upon your site, you move from the most important to the least important, just the way it was intended. Another one is unity. I think I've mentioned unity like countless times. One important thing is everything within your design should work together. They should not be pointing in different directions. There should not be too much noise. That is too many things going on all at once. It should be balanced. There should not be too much space between relating, but everything just has to work together, and that is called um, unity. So harmony, there's harmony. It looks like one. There's a cohesive look and feel. So that I mentioned two now. I mentioned hierarchy and unity. Then another one is rhythm. This is as a result of movements. Like movement is when you direct. So like rhythm is as a result of movement. So movement is when you guide like or direct the user's eyes to your design. So rhythm is like the sense of movement. When you're directing the user's eyes, you're actually using rhythm. Yeah, you can actually do this with repetition. I think this rhythm is more on an emotional experience level. So reading can actually evoke emotion. So like maybe you use one particular um element at one point, like you're arranging them in such a way, like these similar elements in such a way that that the user moves from one part of the design to the other in a kind of seamless manner. So like there's a cohesive feel to it, even though the user is not staying at one part of the design. Then I think there's one that's okay. I would still touch on that. Then pattern, then pattern, then pattern. So this is just about adding detail, adding like what I say, simulating like texture. So like you look at a design, you see a certain pattern, it reminds you of a certain texture. Like dots could remind you of like a dotted pattern could remind you of sand, or like a wavy pattern could remind you of water or the ocean. But yeah, these are just decorative elements. It's just use decorative. Then scale. Then scale. So scale refers to, so like comparing two elements together. So one size in relation to the other. That's the scale. That's scale. So the scale of and the scale of an element relates means like its size. When you relate it to a different size, that's the scale. So this is used in like establishing visual hierarchy. Yeah. Okay, so I think these are the ones that these are like the design principles so far. Yeah, I actually wanted us to do a sort of game. The intention was that we would cover everything within the laws like today. But if it's not possible, we can continue it tomorrow. Sorry, not tomorrow, next week. While we also focus on the UI aspect. Because why this whole principles just to like introduce us to the UI aspect. And so we'll continue next week, but you'd have something to do. So just like the way you looked at that website and you were able to actually find things wrong with it. So what I would expect us to do would be to pick a different site. We come upon different sites, we come upon different in fact, yeah, in fact, I'm not even going to restrict it to a site now. Any form of digital design that you can find, any form of digital design that you can find, and you can pinpoint something wrong with it. You can pinpoint something wrong with it. Your assignment would be to put that to better link that in a document, but then write about it, detail out the things that you can pinpoint. Yeah, the issues. Yeah, so the issues with that design, just list them out. It doesn't matter how many, it doesn't matter how few. I think the list should be well, the list should be 5. Yeah, but you should be able to get a design whereby you can point out 5 things that are wrong with it. Yeah, 5 things. And I'm not limiting this to just a UI design now. I'm saying basically any form of digital design. It could even be a publication, like an online publication, probably see